suggest you read, and I'll remind you which areas to go look at. Harm has been done, and even when we don't plan to cause harm, harm happens. So how do we manage it? So it's important to appreciate that people have human rights, we have autonomy, we have respect for decision making. If that mama you're recruiting into that ANC study says, I have to go and talk to Mwenye, in Kilifi where I do a lot of research, the husband is called Mwenye. Those who know Swahili, what is Mwenye? If you translate it directly. Yeah? Owner. So there's a concept in Kilifi of Mwenye. Actually, it's there, even people have been writing about it. And they say, Nenda kumuliza Mwenye, alafu naja. You know, I want to go ask Mwenye, and they're referring to the spouse. Here in Chogore, how do you refer to your spouses? Or their spouses, your patients, when they say, I want to go call my husband, what would they say? Is there a specific way? So in Kilifi, there is a concept. And you as a researcher will say, I want to respect that this is a different context. They do things differently. In Uganda, there was a place where we went to work, and there's an uncle. He's like the patriarch at that point in that family, who everything goes through him. Even when you're getting married, Uncle John needs to know you found a spouse, and you bring the spouse, you know, for tea. Those types. So even when you're making a decision to be in a clinical trial, Uncle John needs to know. And so we were doing a multi-site study, Ethiopia, Kenya, South Africa, and out of Harvard. And the Harvard PI was saying, Uganda is taking long about this consent. And I was an ethicist for the Kenyan PI, and we stood with the ethicists for Uganda, and we said, look, we have to do it. We have to be researchers. First of all, you're a researcher of integrity. You talk about this thing, but you need to walk the walk. So you've come to a site where they say they want the information sheet about the study to take it home to Uncle John and to Mwenye. Then it's not that they don't want to be in the study. They know they are autonomous. Oh, women in Africa, you know, you don't have. I'm enabled and I'm an autonomous, but I ask my husband for permission and it's okay. That's our community. And so we say, look, I had to tell him when I arrived in Chogore, I'm okay, I'm in the guest house now. I don't have to, but it's just how we do our things. So they said, oh, but if you change that little part, we have to go back to the Harvard IRB. I said, then we do it. We had to. But we had to stand this is the first study ever where I saw PIs identifying anethicists to work with them. And we were working pro bono to support the PIs. We're making decisions, making translations and things like that. But it's just making sure we respect, we actually walk the walk. And it ended up being very quick. And you know what happens when you allow that process? You don't have much to follow. The Mwenye knows she's part of a study. In fact, she will say, you remember that study? Today is the day they go to check how the baby is doing. And they say, oh, go, did they give you transport? You know, so it becomes, it's ethical all around. And that's what, when we read these protocols and we see these types of things, we need, especially for multi-site studies, we need to sensitize our collaborators on these realities because they're doing it well. And again, we say we fast because we want to have sound science. You want to add adults to that knowledge base. We want to inform the Ministry of Health. We want to improve whatever it is that is going on, the intervention. So if we don't do good research, and we've seen research withdrawn from journals, and people are already citing it, especially during the HIV era when we were just studying, and people later say they have fabricated the data. And people are using that data to inform clinical practice. So you want to make sure, we fuss about ethics because we want to make sure the data that ends up being disseminated is sound and can be used to guide what we're doing and what you were saying, turning the findings into practicalities. Let's, since I've talked too much, who will read for me this story? Who knows about the Nyumbani orphanage? It's maybe, who wants to read for me this case as we read together? Because we talked about where is it all coming from. These are examples, and the examples from the north, but this happened in our country and was a big story. Tony, you want to read? Can you see from the back? And project your thoughts. We read together.
So, case example 1 of the Nyumbani orphanage, 2004. Scientists from Oxford University stole the blood of African orphans and brought it back to Britain to carry out unlawful research in pigs. Dr. Otsiula alleges the stored blood he collected from HIV-infected orphans and used his data to publish their research. At the Nyumbani Children's Home, HIV-infected children's natural immunity has intrigued scientists around the world. Researchers believe the orphans' blood offer vital genetic clues that could lead to the holy grail of AIDS research, that is an effective vaccine. More than 70% of children with HIV in Africa die before they are 3. But several of the orphans at the Nyumbani were already in their teens. Otsiula claims it was my project, my time, my samples, and my ideas. They came and just stole it all. That is completely unethical. They wrote over this research. They wrote over AIDS research at the Nyumbani orphanage was an additional controversy over the way HIV-infected children are used in research. Earlier on, the observers revealed that the drug giant GlaxoSmithKline used orphans at New York Children's Home in experiments.
How do you feel when you hear that? So this is not a story, this happened, and the debates raged for long, and the Oxford team justified in many ways. Remember, the 3 theorists showed you how you can keep explaining why you are doing what you're doing, but they tried to explain what they were doing, but it still remains a big issue. So, what are the ethical considerations you see? What is popping out to you? What's the first thing about this case that is, what?
Children.
Children. And it came up. So whatever as you forget from this training, remember vulnerable participants is a priority. It's a red flag. The first thing is children. The second thing? HIV. And that time, 2004, we were barely having a lot going on. So this kid who's supposed to have died at 3 years is 15. So it was like, hey, there's something either about their genetics or something is going on with this. So what could have been done right? What's the ethical considerations that should have been?
Data transfer.
So there's the issue of data transfer. What else do you see? Consent. So who would be consented for this kind of a study?
Parents or legal guardians.
Orphans.
The orphans.
Then legal guardian.
Some legal guardian of some sort, isn't it? We talk about the LAR, a legally appointed representative or a legal guardian. There is always somebody, they are already in a children's home, isn't it? So there is an adult who can fully comprehend the information sheet of a project, isn't it? So that's the point. What else do you see? Assent, isn't it? Because some of these kids were 15, or I mean they are older, isn't it? So we say assent can start from what age? At what age can a child easily understand a study if you explain it using standard 5, grade 5 language?
10 years.
What does the country say? What in Kenya we say? Yeah, some 10-year-olds can understand, but the golden rule is at least somebody who is 13 to 17. Yeah, they can understand. And we are encouraging PIs to submit to the ethics committee a version of the information sheet that is child-friendly. So that there is the one you will do with their legal whatever, and the mom and the father. But yes, anything else that pops up for you?
Big financial concerns. So you have something where you're struggling with utilitarian, a big farm company. If we find something, we can help millions.
So we're going to
So we are going to justify everything, but of course, what's behind the motivation? Money.
Yeah.
Versus small-scale research. Might find that they have the consent, they might find that they have the relationships or the trust, they might have the principles on their side, but yet how many will they help in the end? It might take them 30 years, they find very little because of resources. So now you find that the principles might be there, but the utility is there.
I'm just thinking in 2004, what was the role of Narcosti in this in approval of these protocols, and was there like some monetary just to make sure the interests of these children were guarded.
Good question.
Maybe another question.
Yes, sir.
Because they have, like, it looks like there is an involvement with that. So I'm sure that we didn't have some.
I was waiting for that because we talked about data transfer, but the other key thing that you need, it's a red flag even for the ethics committee. The moment the PI mentions human samples of any nature, the review, we cannot make it an expedited approach to reviewing it. We cannot take it lightly. You need to look at all the documents, and especially if the sample is leaving the country. Because now you add more documents, the material transfer agreements that will show how it will be. Remember the handling? How it will, they'll get it, store it, handle it, share it, and then access issues thereafter. All this. So thanks for raising that. I really wanted that to come up because that was one of the big discussion points. About Nakosti, when this case now started coming out in the media, there was, I remember one of the explanations from the Oxford PI was that, but we got some permission. And I was in Nakosti at that time, and even right now, Nakosti is still struggling as we were talking about this. I think Nakosti needs to have people who know what they're doing in this particular part of work for Nakosti. But they had a research permit, but what people do is you get a research permit, but the details, you see, that time we didn't have these requirements for IRBs to review a protocol. People were going to Nakosti and getting a research permit. So it was not necessarily the case that protocols would be read and analyzed thoroughly. But now, since that time, now we have at least more than 40 ethics committees in the country, and we are encouraging that a PI submits their protocol there so that a smaller group of people probably working in the region where this person is planning to go and do research is able to look at that and advise the PI before they go to get a research permit. During that era, I remember doing some work on male circumcision, and I just went to Nakosti with a proposal and paid some money, and I got a permit, and I went to work. So I suspect there were all those gaps.
Although 2004, Nakosti did exist. We had National Council for Science.
Just the name changed, but the activity of overseeing was still there. I went for a permit,
Yeah,
but the name was different.
well, the Nakosti that we know now, yeah, it's not the Nakosti. XAST, but Nakosti really changed a little bit when
Yeah.
it became Nakosti.
It's true.
Yeah, so now they had greater oversight.
It's true.
But by 2004, NCST was just an
Yeah.
arm of government, which would just give them a permit.
Yeah, actually I have a slide on that about when we get to the policies and guidelines, and that's correct. So we are in a better place now than we were even in 2004, and thanks for echoing that and this is why just having this ethics committee in Chogoria exist is such a big plus for this whole region and for the patient population here and anybody else who will do research around here. And that's why we're having this training here. I would not be standing here interacting with you. So we are miles ahead. Actually, I have to tell you the truth. Colleagues from the region, East Africa, they keep saying, Kenya, what are you doing on this so that we ride on it? So that's how, and we still feel we are short. So we are making progress, but I think we can move faster. And I thank you for setting up this committee because it's part of the solution. So allow me to shift to a different type of example.
Excuse me?
Yeah, oh yes, please.
What about the fact that it seems that there's conflict between Dr. Otsula? What is this statement? It was my project, my time, my samples, and I What is that ethical?
Now, that's raising an issue about the research team, isn't it? Thank you. What do you see? And I'll invite members to share that. What do you see there? Because there's a course I teach on research misconduct, and we spend a lot of time on that, talking about research teams and publication ethics and things like that. But what do you see?
Either someone who was shortchanged. Actually, I don't see where the other team came in. I don't know who was the primary PI for this project.
So remember, right now, Nakosti and the ethics committees require every protocol we review must have a local PI. So Dr. Otsula was a local person working with the Oxford team. Then he went to Harvard. He says, I cut the story, but you can look. He went to Harvard for a collaborative meeting while he was away. These guys went to his storage and carried stuff, the data to his computer, carried the data and carried also the samples to Europe when he was away.
What?
So he came, yes. And so that's the parts, those are the parts so, and then they went ahead, by the way, analyzed the data and even published. Actually, I don't know that those papers were retracted because I didn't, to see whether even Otsula's name was put on the
It was
publication.
involved. He was involved because how did he collect the data and how did they know that?
No, he was part of, they were collaboration.
They started and they
It's
cut
like
him
a
out.
marriage that falls apart at some point. So thanks for reminding us that. I didn't dwell on it because the ethics committee rarely deals with that. But maybe a case someone might whistleblow and call the committee and say the research you had approved last 2 years ago, we are trying to publish and I'm being shortchanged. If they come to you as a committee, you can step in and support because and that's why it's good to build capacity also around that, but it's not as primary. But thanks for raising that. Yeah. So when you have a local PI, that's the PI of record for your ethics committee. When there's an issue, that's the PI. You'll go for Ursula, not for the person in the north. They are the ones who are responsible for the protocol within the country. Yes.
I'm so sorry. So then as you guys are reviewing protocols, how much of the protocols built in is internal protocols about how these collaborations will work? I've seen these ones, they say you must have a local PI. But, so it's being recognized that there's that internal team process that's important. But then how much do you guys look at the protocols already there? So like, the PI will become the primary proprietary owner of the samples, or like, do you have to review all of those details with us?
So yes, and we can push that to when we'll be doing reviewing protocols. Although it's more about the process of review, but we can have more of that. But yes, when a project comes from a multi-site project, let's put it that way, and you have a PI in Harvard or in Oxford and a PI in Chogoria, and they will be doing some work in the ANC or in the pediatric ward or oncology unit. There needs to be someone, by the way, not just anyone. You remember where I talked about the researcher's competence? There needs to be a researcher at this institution at par with a PI who is global or as close as possible. In fact, if you don't have one, we recommend that you recruit one from another institution in the country, but it needs to be a Kenyan. The idea is that in Nuremberg Code and things that went wrong in the Nazi days, having people who need to own, to say, I know what I'm doing, I'm competent to do it, especially for clinical trials, we can't shortchange it. But even for behavioral science research. So when the protocol comes, we always check, is there a local PI? If there isn't, we immediately stop there and just send an email immediately, your protocol has come. We are ready to review it, but we want, can you confirm who is your local PI? And their CV has to come. Yeah. And so when it comes to decisions about materials and all that, it should be that the material share, those appendages that you have to have where materials are moving around and data is moving around. All that has to be captured, and it should be clear that the local PI has not been left out. Sadly, we have seen many local PIs there just by name. They get their FTE, faculty time effort, but they are not checking the details. And sometimes it takes the study coordinator to raise the issue. So let's again become examples of it. And when you can't do it, just say you are not available. We get another PI. Because we'll get one because we're training many. Thank you for that question. All right. You will tell me when you want us to take a break. Can I do one more case and then we do a break? What is it?
It's
20 minutes. Okay. I need to move faster. So please, Tony, or someone else. This one now brings out other aspects that are touching a bit on what Anne was saying, because there is research integrity issues beyond. They took the data and went and did some things. Maybe they didn't fabricate it. Maybe they didn't falsify it. So they showed us an example of where they didn't do the right thing as far as teamwork goes. But we've seen cases of falsification and fabrication. Can you read for me this one?
Sure.
About this staple.
Yeah, I won't try and give the past name. He was a social psychology professor. In September 2011, Tilburg University suspended Staple after allegations of fabrication and falsification of data by 3 graduate student advisees. The allegations found Staple had made up data in 30 publications. The questionnaires used in the studies were never administered, to anyone. Instead, Stapo fabricated his own data sets and even sent other previously fabricated data sets to his colleagues with the goal of attaining authorship on their papers. Following the investigation, Staple admitted to the use of fake data in his studies and was subsequently discharged of his position at Tilburg University. He also voluntarily returned his PhD to the University of Amsterdam. Retraction Watch has amassed 58 publications retractions due to falsified or fabricated data for Diederik Stapel.
Again, not a story. This happened.
That's, I think, so happening in Kenya.
You know, like are you going to talk about Alzheimer's research?
No, go ahead.
I mean, so some of the quote unquote pioneering research in Alzheimer's that was done 20, 30 years ago, actually, and you know, hundreds of papers written about these, based on kind of these seminal studies. They went back, they found that many of the scans were digitally altered, some of the data was fake, and like millions and millions of research dollars were spent pursuing these things based on
False data.
false data.
And probably there was a farmer at the back of the story, what she was saying, to make sure. You can see, thanks for sharing that example. So it's an illustration of, again, integrity of the researcher. You know what you're doing. You're literally doing it in your lab with your mentees. You're even sending a fabricated data set to colleagues to go and mine the data further and publish so that your name is also on that. At least he did something on in the end. Just saying, yeah, I don't deserve this PhD. And there's so many other examples. So when we do a session on research misconduct, I bring on board about, so this is happening. And so when you are giving CMEs and all the opportunities as ethics committee, actually NACOSTI expects you to be like a gateway where people come for advice, people come for education. So these are some of the things you could run like during some of the sessions, just to encourage people to think through the process of their research, how they will analyze the data, how they will verify the data. That takes care of some of these problems. So fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism are wrong, and they have major implications, and here are some of the examples. Like I say, some of the early work, Alzheimer's and HIV, people published and people used it to inform clinical care. So we are saying that it can cause harm, and it's a waste of resources. A lot of money going into enhancing those seminal works that were done, thinking it's the right thing to do. But more so, other scientists, remember what we say about science is? They cannot replicate what you did. And sometimes that's how there's a Duke University professor, when we talk about fabrication, it's a whole day, it's on YouTube, and I can share the link. Someone tried to replicate his pen and kept finding holes until they said, I'm coming to your lab to show me how you do this, and that's how they found out the guy was actually doing some. So we are not able to learn, replicate, and build on, and that's the heart of science. And that's the heart of research. So you're doing a disservice when you do FFP, as we call it, the cardinal sins, the three cardinal sins: fabrication, falsification, plagiarism. That is the heart of research misconduct. So let's be researchers of integrity, and as we train others, let's look out for it. In this cartoon, this person is giving an NIH grant, and he said, you are completely free to carry out whatever research you want, so long as you come up with these conclusions. Sometimes the farmers, the big farmers, they give you money with Rocher and others, say, this work in oncology unit, but these are the findings. Somehow your findings should go in this direction, because they already have the manufacturing plant getting ready to spin some pills there. So you want to look out for things like this, and someone may whistleblow to you, and maybe it was not about a protocol, but this is the nearest committee in this region where they can come for help. So let's look out for FFP. And when we talk about protection of participants, I won't go into this. We all know about the Nazi experiments, isn't it? Someone asked about the historical. It's things that were done really wrong. Not that people didn't know what they were doing. Okay, there was a bit of ignorance here and there, but quite a number of people, there was incompetence in some, there was fear in others, but the key thing is that things were done wrong. And these two cases, the Nazi experiments and Tuskegee syphilis study, there are videos and all kinds of things, you can find their details, were critical in people saying, hey, we are humans, stop. I don't care that you're black, young, pregnant or not, we need to do something about this. We are finishing ourselves. It was a point. You can literally have a session where you just, as a committee one day during a CME, you just go through the Tuskegee case alone and you discuss it at length. You will realize this orphanage issue has elements of the Tuskegee thing that happened. So they are repeating, unfortunately they are repeating. And then we have these guidelines. If you look up the Nuremberg Code, you look up the Belmont report, the common rule, all these are available online and they show you how, because of all these things, we've come up with guidelines internationally and actually nationally we are using them. The Nuremberg Code focuses more on consent because twins, you name it, prisoners, people are just being used like guinea pigs. So the code, this particular code focuses a lot on autonomy, beneficence, those things that my sister will talk about. And the point that research should be meaningful to society and it should not be random. There should be a clear procedure. And that's why we're talking about positivism as we are thinking about it. The Belmont report captures the 3 principles, and including non-maleficence, and she will talk about it. But the key thing is here, show respect, yeah? Be courteous, do good, be a virtuous person, look for beneficence, balance the benefits and the risk, and lastly, are you being fair? Is distributive justice your baby? Are you thinking about, are you involving people the way you should? Are you engaging them fairly? Are you reimbursing that participant fairly? Don't overdo it. There was a study in Eldoret, I was asked to do a study on informed consent for a HIV study. It was HIV and TB, and it's those days when the ART was minimal, it was barely available. So patients were so sick, and that study wanted to recruit very sick patients. So they wanted maltutia, people who can barely walk to the hospital. Some even told me I came on a wheelbarrow, my dad brought me. They were so sick, but they fitted the eligibility criteria because there was a drug to be tried to see whether if you give this bullet, does this person who's so sick with TB and is so immunosuppressed, okay, the good news is that actually the drug helps. But so I was interviewing them post the study. How was the informed consent? Oh, madam, it was 16 pages. That was the first, some of the findings from the study. And there were big names about the medicine. Then the key thing, they were so vulnerable, they were so sick. Many of them said, my brother made the decision, my father made the decision, but I'm glad they did. And I was put away from the HIV clinic to the research clinic where they would give us tea and mandazi on arrival. And then one said they would give us transport reimbursement, but it was enough for me to pay rent. So again, you have to think about what is fair. Are we in Chogoria, if somebody does a radius, James, to come here for a visit, to be followed up, how much money should you give for transport reimbursement? Don't overdo it, but also don't go below. Make sure they're able to get that motorbike or that matatu and have a small lunch. So a lot of IRBs now are at about like 700 to 1,000 shillings to make sure the person can have transport, come easily, have a meal, things like that. So be practical within your context. These are the realities and we'll talk about that more. So as I finish, when we come lower to our country, we have Nakosi, she's already talked about that. It was the National Commission for Science and Technology, and it used to be NCST, what she said. And it's located on Waiyaki Way. And by the way, they like to have visitors, so if your protocols or the IRB are having issues, you can send someone there, but yeah, I see your face. But we are hoping it will run better. I'm not happy with the way things are running, but at least there's some form of office and things. But their mandate is to regulate and assure quality in science and technology and advise the government. And they set up what is called the NSAC. And I serve on the NSAC. I've been there since 2010. I don't know why I'm still there. It's supposed to be a great term. Yeah, that's how dysfunctional it is. But it was established in 2009, and I was recruited in 2010. But it's an advisory committee, so they decide to use us when they want, and when they don't want, they don't do it. And so, unfortunately, the current regime has not been engaging us. So, in fact, sometimes, like when Iserc needs help with anything, he just reaches out to me directly, and I try to help them. So, it can do better, but it's there. And we are quite a rich group. There's regional balance, there's gender balance, there's multidisciplinary balance, and we also try to have people from different institutions across the country, and we have expertise. We are at least 11. And the functions